Welcome to Womb Talk. I'm your host, Elizabeth Vanderwalt, the owner and founder of Fruitful Womb Doula Services. In Womb Talk, we like to go over different topics that are acceptable for all audiences. When I say all audiences, I'm normally aiming at women, but some men may like to listen to this too. There's a lot of information. You can learn a lot about us. So, little edit into our usual opening here, you guys. We're not medical professionals, and everything on this podcast is to educate you so that you can make better choices for your body. If you have a passion for all things women's health, then let's start listening. It's a wide range of subjects that are at your fingertips. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on a lot of platforms. Let's start talking, shall we? Hey there, everybody. So today's podcast is going to be on a subject that might ring true to a lot of people. And honestly, this is one that I hope to bring up in the future again on the podcast with somebody else. Kind of more of like not a debate episode, but more of just something where someone else is talking with me about this subject. So let's start off by talking about our ticking clock. For all women, it is well known that we have a sense of urgency when it comes to having a child. There's always that, what they call the internal clock is ticking, and we discuss this often. I've discussed this often with clients who said that all of a sudden they just felt that need, like it clicked in. And a couple of nights ago, I was watching a movie called Baby Mama. It has Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, I think her name is. And that was a very interesting movie because it was about a woman who was, I think, 37, if I remember correctly. And she decided, all of a sudden, one morning, she woke up and she felt this need to have a baby. She had, for years, worked business, and had worked so hard that this urgency kind of came up with her that she needed to have a baby. So she tried on her own through sperm donors. She tried IVF. And none of it seemed to work for a while until she decided surrogacy. It's a really awesome movie, and I won't continue on to tell you more spoilers. But I think it was a really good, kind of in a sense, wake-up call to our generation that is coming around. And I know those who are listening and know that I'm actually only 24, like, how do you know what to say? Or you can't really speak on this subject. And I mean, it's just from all my training and the years of people that I've worked with, and even through my own mother. My own mother was 37 when she had me, and my baby brother, I believe she was 41, 42. So, I grew up in a home with that. And from what my discoveries are slowly going on is that my grandmother was older having my mother, and my great-grandmother was older having my grandmother. So it's a theme in my house, which I have a feeling the more I get older, is that might work that way to me too, because I am a working woman. I am, a doula, and I'm a women's health coach, and I also now am a preschool teacher. So it's, for me, I already sense that since I love doing those items, I really don't see myself quitting to have children in the next year or two. So, I have to find someone first. So I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to go through the science of the human body just a little bit here. And I wanted to discuss this because before I get into our biological clock is ticking, I think we should get into you and your body. So first off, me, myself, I am a female. And when you are a female baby and you are conceived, you have as many as 7 million eggs. Now, the fun thing about this is, and this is where it gets a little kind of confusing, once upon a time, I existed in my grandmother's womb. So, the eggs from my grandmother gave birth to my mother, and inside my mother, when I was conceived, I was in there, like my mother's eggs. So, I always try to find that fun for people to tell them, like, the generational lines that you are. So I should have some, strength and all that stuff because I was built up in technically my grandmother's womb. So by the age of puberty, so let's say I was 11 when I hit puberty. So I had around 300 to 500,000 eggs that were made. So that's a lot from 7 million that we started with at conception, or when I was in the womb. So the number of eggs have dropped steadily and naturally over time. Now, when menopause arrives, now in an article that I was reading here from Healthline in the past, they had said it around 51. A shocking discovery to tell you is that menopause is now hitting women over 30. People are getting menopause in their 30s or their 40s, as young as that. So just to state that for you, the ovaries at that time, around around menopause, contain around 1,000 eggs. So the health of your eggs and the level of the reproductive hormones in your body also decreases over time. So that's where, when menopause hits, is your hormones itself, they're just past that cycle point. And some conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, just in case you don't know, uterine fibroids, hypothyroidism, or hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. I always mix the two, and I always feel like I just missed one and I said one. To mess with those. And cancer can actually affect our egg quality and egg life, storage, all that kind of thing. So if you have a history of any of these conditions, then that is where you can see a fertility decline a little bit. And so in our topic of the biological clock that we're going to be talking about today, this is where your biological clock comes from. Your body was born with the biological clock of the egg count. And, besides having a healthy womb, a nice living space for baby, you also have the materials that make up baby. And baby can't come into the world unless, everything is in almost tip-top shape. So that can be the starting point of where the biological clock comes from, really, when people are talking about this biological clock. So this subject of the clock is ticking has been a well-known kind of saying that we've had for a very long time, because in the past we used to have it that women would be married by 18, they would have children, and I don't think they ever felt, well, they might have felt that sense of a clock is ticking kind of thing. And in this day and age, we have a lot of people that do have infertility or are trying to conceive, and it's taking a longer time. So if other outside people are telling you, oh, your clock is ticking, I wouldn't wait too long, or, you have to hurry, or what's taking you so long? These kind of things, it's in a sense a very personal thing that you're going through as well. And it often isn't just like, snap, there's a baby because you told me my clock is ticking. So what also triggered me saying this, besides that wonderful movie that I was watching, is I had also seen a thread on Reddit, a thread on Reddit that I thought was hilarious. This lady was trying to come up with comebacks to this topic of your clock is ticking. And one of my favorite ones that had mentioned in this by a Wendigo, he or she goes, I took the batteries out of my biological clock and put them in my vibrator. So I honestly just laughed because I was like, that is hilarious. And for a lot of older people that normally are the ones telling the younger generation, oh, your clock is ticking, they may automatically be a little more uncomfortable with that situation and that statement. So I automatically was drawn to it as it came out of this thread. And what made me start Googling this thread was because of that movie. So it's kind of, as you can see, this podcast was a chain of events that happened that ended up being something that I wanted to talk to you about today. Because as women, and I think this is coming more known, I think it is less taboo, less I don't know what the right word is here that I'm trying to say, but it is less that we don't talk about that kind of subject. And it's less of that because more women are getting older, because we were in such a time where it was women moved into the workforce. And because they moved into the workforce, the focus became work. And there's nothing wrong with that, I want to state. There's nothing wrong with putting work first and that being one of your main focal points. And unfortunately, we aren't like men, and it doesn't last us forever. We do eventually hit menopause, and then it's harder to do. And a lot of the time, once you hit over 30, 35 roughly, that is when you will find more people tend to lean towards the side of IVF, IUI, and go along that way. So, and because we have modern technology like that today, we are able to conceive longer than we used to. As I mentioned in the past, I've had clients in their 40s, and upwards from 40, by the way, that have had children, and they have been healthy and they've been fine. It's just the getting the pregnancy to come into fruition. That's where it ends up being a bit more of a struggle. And some people, when they're younger, are urged that if you're not going to focus on it, then freeze your eggs, take a sample so that you would have them for the future. And this is, I don't think I mean, the people that I've worked with, it has not been popular. It's not been something done because they thought ahead or anything like that. But I'm thinking more along the line of the generation, like the millennials into my generation, have maybe thought about doing that just on the safe side, because it is, possibly harder to find someone that you click with and that you might want to start a family with. So honestly, I have found it a very interesting topic that we're still to this day having people mention the biological clock. Like we ourselves, oftentimes I look and I think I'm like, oh, I'm 24, and to some people you might be like, oh, that's really young. And I think because I grew up with older parents, and I knew their struggle, like to have me, and I think because I grew up with my grandmother and like I'm used to being with older people, as rude as that might come sounding off, I think I've always thought along the lines of older. So, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, she's 24, what is she talking about? This, just to put it in perspective a little on why I do think of these things sometimes. I myself, I'm like, time does go by really fast, and how do I want to assess life in the situation? And I've been told by therapists and people that I've worked with and everything that I'm always much more mature for my age than I would look. So give me some credit if you don't know me. So the fact that there are still people out there that are talking about this, when reproductive health is really, honestly, it's everybody's own business. And the fact that we still have people pointing this out when we don't know what for troubles that they're having, could be really, it could be painful. If you're suffering yourself with right now trying to conceive and someone said that to you, I can not just imagine how much the hurt might be on the inside, because you are trying. Like, unfortunately, I think in the past, and I'm thinking from my mother's generation, like how people told her and stuff like that, but I'm just thinking way beyond like World War II and etc. If they had infertility, it wasn't talked about. Like, it was the most taboo type of thing that you could get. And we're sitting with so many people nowadays who do have it, so it's not as taboo. If I'm on Instagram or I'm on Facebook, now I am in those groups because of the work that I do. I read about it all the time, about how many people are trying to have a child, and they may be the over 30 section, but there are people in their 20s that are struggling with it even. So I find it interesting that it's still a topic. Like this Reddit thread that I was reading, it's from 2 years ago. 2 years ago is not very long at all. And I mean, just to put it in perspective a little, my mother, there were many times she would walk out with me, and she was always called Grandma. Everyone always was like, oh, are you having fun with Grandma today? Are you enjoying that? Or my mother dealt with a lot that after she had me, that then people would think her irresponsible because she didn't have another. So then she had my sister, which was really close together. And then people were telling her, "Oh, you should really quit now." And people were butting into my mother's business. And I say this because I'm sure that this is happening still today, and that you're still having, or you're still finding people that are telling you, "Oh, 2 is too many. Oh, is that really wise? You're getting really old." When before they were the ones telling you you should be having a baby. So I guess maybe this little bit of an episode that's more based on rants and discussion, really. It's more of a discussion type episode. But it's really just to think of how this is such a subject that is still happening in this day and age. And that, you yourself who might be listening and might be trying to conceive or have one child and are thinking about another, or, all these kind of situations, somebody has something to say about it. And I think that's what I'm really getting to at here, is that how do you continue living your life while bypassing all of the noise? And that noise is the neighbors, or, your mother-in-law, or, grandmothers that walk in the store, or whatever it might be. I mean, I'm telling you based off my mother's situation from, like way back 10, 15, almost 20-ish years ago, where people were saying these kind of things. And the funny thing is, we have a biological clock for most of our cells, tissues, organs, all that kind of thing. They do have an internal clock. And whenever they talk of biological clocks, people, it is always related to our human fertility. Like, when are we going to have a baby, all that kind of stuff. And then it's winding down, etc. So I think it's interesting because there's so many external factors that come with wanting to have a baby. And so many people don't even know that, you may never want a child, or, you don't know, like, what people are going through. And the fact that people still say it baffles my mind. See, according to the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, I think I said that right. I don't know if they have an acronym, actually. But anyway, a healthy 30-year-old woman has about a 20% chance of getting pregnant each month, while a 40-year-old woman has about a 5% chance. So by my late 20s, which will be happening in about, let's say, 5-ish years, that is when my fertility will start to decline. It's very gradual, but it's declining already. So this is something that is part of that biological clock already, is your chance also is being lowered. So, I mean, most of this is basic knowledge on this ticking clock that they talk about all the time, the biological clock. And in all honesty, like I said, you will find that with modern science today, your chances of having a baby with help can be higher and play a bigger success role. But to tell you some good stories, because I feel like this episode has been maybe a little drawn out with sad things and things that might make you a little like, oh, my clock is ticking, I better hurry, or better go find a man. There are some good stories, and there's a lot of good stories. You just have to find and know them all. I only know a few of. And I mean, one of them is Dawn Brooke. She's apparently a woman who had a baby naturally at the age of 59. She challenged the traditional thinking around fertility. And I'm trying to read what it states here, because if I do not read this, I'm going to forget how it went all. So I'm going to read it based off sciencemag.com, and they have a debunking the ticking clock kind of article. And in there it says, Dr. Pete's insights reveal substances like vitamin E, progesterone, opposing oestrogen, I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, and cortisol, maintain fertility in older animals, showing the age isn't the only relevant factor in fertility. The journey from a tiny egg to a full-grown individual is hugely dependent on the environment at the cellular level. Initial eggs may die off, making room for new eggs to be formed later. The key is the cellular environment during this formation. If suboptimal, the new eggs might struggle. However, as previously mentioned, studies have shown that when eggs from older animals are implanted into younger ones, they can still create healthy babies. In other words, it's not about the number of eggs a woman has from the get go, but rather the conditions both inside and outside her body. The theory that menopause happens not because of eggs running out, but due to changes in the cellular environment affecting hormone production and the conditions for a baby to start growing gives you a new perspective. And if you're a Christian and you've read the Bible, I'm a Christian, so that's why I'm speaking on this for a second. So if you don't like it, just turn this piece off, and I wish you well. We in the Bible had Sarah. She was, I believe, she was older. She was an older woman who had a baby. I want to say 75, but they lived for hundreds of years. So if they did that in the past, and some believe that this isn't real, so that's where you get, maybe possibly a little bit, maybe a little curious onto why, that these things would happen, or if they were real, etc. But why did we decline in that sense, that we do not have babies until now? Normally we cut off around 40-ish. That's the curious thing I always have with things. But the fact that she, Dawn Brooke, she had her baby on August 20th, 1997. She became the oldest natural mother when she gave birth. Her son was born via C-section, of course, at the age of 59. But she had conceived accidentally because she had managed to ovulate past her last period. So overall, very amazing story about the wonderful Dawn Brooks, or Brooke. I'm unsure. There's a few articles saying different things, but really, she just shows you that it can be done, and it all depends on the condition you take care of your body. So if maybe you're like me and you're younger listening to this episode and you're like, I don't know why I chose to listen to this, and if you're wondering about your biological clock, taking care of your body will be one of the number one things that you're going to want to do. And health is something so important. To me, myself, I also have a few health issues that I just know right now are affecting my chances of possibly having a baby in the future. So it's just a sign that it's very vital to make sure you take care of yourself wherever and wherever you can. So anyway, I hope that you have an amazing day, and I appreciate that you listened to this episode, and hopefully it just shone some light on a bit of a subject that, maybe if you're not at childbearing age, just be careful who you ask, who or when they're going to have their baby. Just be careful on what you say a little bit around people, and use nice words. But hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next month in October for another episode. Have a great day. Bye.